right, we'll just wait for some people to get here. What's up, everybody? Yep, there it is. Okay, so we'll go full screen. Sorry. There we go. All right, what's up, everybody? Hope everyone's having a great day. We'll wait a little bit here while we get some of the people up in here. But yeah, this is the first time I go live during the week. Usually it's on the weekend, like on Saturdays. I usually go live every Saturday. But I'm going to step up the amount of lives that I do every single week. I'm doing like at least 2 now because I have so many people to interview, so many people that I want to have on as guests, particularly because my channel is about people moving to Medellin and making a life for themselves here, either, you know, buying an apartment or just renting long term. But anyway, welcome everybody. We're gonna get started. So if you have questions as we go along, what's up, 69 Way Better? How you doing? He's always like the first one here. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started. I don't know why. We have some of the funniest names. There's a guy named Zombie Farts Are Way Better or something like that.
It's gotta be the same person, man.
What's up, Buddha? How's it going? What's up, everybody? Welcome, welcome. This is my friend Mateo. Mateo, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Nice to meet you guys. Thank you for having me here. As Andrew was mentioning, my name is Mateo Monsalve. I'm an attorney by profession. I'm an entrepreneur by heart. So I'm in the...
Oh, really?
Yes, definitely. I love doing business. I'm into creating businesses and opportunities. As of lately, someone put it in a very nice way.
Yeah.
They say I'm in the business of building bridges.
Yeah.
So we like to find needs that definitely are presented in the market, provide opportunities for people, and also be able to solve those needs. And so yeah, that's basically what we're doing. Some of the companies that we've developed are in the industries of real estate. We also have companies that provide services in legal, tax, consulting, import and export operations, etc. At the end of the day, the idea is really to be able to build as many bridges and be able to keep on building a country together and more opportunities for everyone. So
right. And so you're from here, from Medellin.
Yes, I'm born and bred here
Born and bred in Medellin.
Yes, I've been living here my whole life.
And your English is really good. Did you study as a kid?
Oh, I did live abroad for a little bit. I lived in Canada for about 2 years in total. So that's pretty much where my English came from.
And don't let this chair deceive you. This chair is actually like 2 inches lower than mine, and he's almost basically as tall as me. I think he's a little taller than me, actually. Did you ever play basketball?
I did try basketball. It's the tales of the unusual tall Colombian. That's
Yeah.
for sure. I tried basketball and a couple more sports. Of course, people would be telling me that all the time. It would be very hard to find someone that's above 6'2".
6'2", yeah. How tall are you?
I'm 6'3", yeah.
You're 6'3"? Yeah, I'm 6'3" as well. So we're probably just right there. I don't know. I always see you and I'm like, damn, I forget how tall you are. But yeah, guys. So Mateo is an attorney here in Medellin. You have your own firm, right?
Yes, we have a law firm that specializes in assisting people who are coming here with their business, with their life moving here. We help them out with immigration stuff as well, taxes, and we have a law firm that also assists people who are going into the U.S. So we also provide those services in the U.S.
I see. Cool. I'm gonna adjust this camera actually so that it's a little closer to us. There we go. And actually, I could scoot over a little bit because what I do is there we go. Now we're like the same height. What I do is I record these. So actually, I should be recording here. I record these, and once I'm done recording, or once we're done, I will make it into a video for the channel, and then also the live will actually live. So if you're watching the repeat, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed yet. But yeah, this is the Medellin Buzz. Welcome to everybody that just got in here. Today I'm interviewing Mateo. Mateo is an attorney here in Medellin who assists people in coming here through visas. But the topic today is going to be real estate because you guys also help people buy property out here, right?
Yeah, so our law firm also has specialists that help people with their due diligence on the legal side for real estate. And at the same time, we have a completely different company that also belongs to the same ecosystem of companies. Nevertheless, it's a different one that specializes in assisting investors more on the commercial side of things. So like really helping them out, understand the market, the opportunities, the risk, really assisting in navigating the market and understanding how it works.
That's great. That's great. And so how long have you been in business for?
So the business group started about 5 years ago. Precisely, it started off with the law firm and the real estate advisory company.
Okay.
So those are the companies that have the most time.
Yeah. Okay. And so I guess we'll say hi to some of the people here. How's it going, Mr. Juan Guerrero? ¿Cómo estás? Phoenix, what's up? Did you get through with your apartment? I remember that you placed some bids. Yeah, I just the apartment downstairs, 202.
Okay.
We just completely remodeled it. I'll show you too after this.
For sure.
The person, our first Airbnb guest in that apartment just left this morning. So the cleaning lady is in there today and tomorrow, and then we have somebody else coming in after the day after.
Awesome.
But it's basically like this apartment. The ones on that side are a little bit bigger.
Okay.
But completely gutted it. You could tell that this apartment hasn't been remodeled since I don't know, 30 years ago when they put it up.
Yeah, I was actually interested in it when I was walking up the stairs. I was going to ask you because it's like this type of buildings that are kind of like hidden. You don't usually pay much attention to them when you're passing by, but those are usually the gems.
Yeah, these are the gems. These are the only apartments I have. I have apartments in here, and I have apartments in another building down the street, which is like 2 blocks. You know where Los Patios is?
Yes.
In Manila? Yeah, so right next to it, there's like another 5-story building. Have an Airbnb in there.
Okay.
Yeah, these are hidden gems. Why do you think these 5-story buildings that are old, this is about a 30-year-old building, 25, 30-year-old, and it has no security guard.
Yeah.
Why do you say that these might be like the hidden gems?
Well, as you mentioned, and it's something that probably applies here as it would apply anywhere. At least I know in the U.S. is the same case. You find properties that are kind of like distressed, and especially something that's very critical about this property that makes it interesting is the location.
Right.
The location is just great. So you find a property that's in a hot location that it's old, that you see it's kind of not in the best shape, right? You see opportunities. For instance, people might, the past owner or the current owner might say, oh, it doesn't have like security 24/7. It doesn't have like a guard.
Right.
But then you think about how you can solve this from another perspective. There are ways. Technology provides a lot of options right now.
That's true.
So yeah, I definitely would see just like right off the bat, I would see some potential in it.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, are all of the properties that you own being rented on Airbnb? Like you have them on short-term rentals?
Yeah, so I usually only do monthlies, but just in November, I started to do more shorter term because there's just more upside. You can make more money doing shorter term than just monthlies, because at monthlies you're basically capped at a rate, and with shorter term like weeklies or even dailies, you can jack up the price because someone that's coming here for, let's say, 4 days or 5 days doesn't mind paying $120, $130 a night compared to someone that's going to be here 2 months. They want a deal. They don't want to pay $130 a month.
Correct.
A night for 60 days. So yeah, the monthlies are great because it's less maintenance, but the dailies are better because it's just more money.
Yeah.
But it is a business. You have to be on top of it. You have to be checking people in, and since our properties are pretty high quality, I guess, or for people that are like 5-star guests, we have to be on there all the time. We're basically on call all the time on WhatsApp with them. So it is a little bit more stressful, I guess, but it's better. I think it's better. I like it. I don't mind it. So I'm trying it out. Doing the dailies with Airbnb out here. But yeah, It's a new venture with the dailies. The monthlies were easy. Like I would just have people in there for 3 months sometimes and didn't even hear from them. They were great guests.
And you have them all around this area too, correct?
Yeah, all in Manila. Yeah,
Oh, perfect.
yeah, all in 2 buildings. This one and the other one. Yeah,
That comes in handy then.
that yeah, it definitely comes in handy, especially when I'm in the same building.
For sure.
Yeah. So, Mateo, tell us what you think about the real estate market in Medellin, where it was before, maybe a few years ago, maybe 5, 10 years ago, to what it's now and what it's becoming.
Okay, so the real estate market in Medellin remains having some of the qualities it has always had in terms, for instance, this market has always gained value pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
If you look at charts and the numbers from all the years from 2000 till now, you would see that it's been like prices of properties steadily grow. That's partly attributed to the fact that financing in Colombia and properties being like you see the percentages of properties that have mortgages in Colombia is very low. It's very low.
I think it's like 10% or something of all properties owned have a mortgage. I remember reading that stat.
It's even a little bit lower.
It's even lower.
Lower than 10%.
So guys, think about that. In the United States, think about all the properties that are owned in the United States. Most of them, if not, I mean, almost all of them, most of them have a mortgage tied to it, right? And sometimes a second mortgage, sometimes a third mortgage or a lien or something.
Yeah, in the U.S. it's about 70%. If I'm not
Imagine
mistaken.
70% have some sort of mortgage tied to it. And in Colombia, less than 10% have some sort of mortgage tied to it. So when that's why I always laugh, like in some of the Facebook groups where like people are talking about, oh, the bubble is gonna burst. I'm like, well, what bubble? Bubbles are not created just from tourism. Bubbles are created when financing is easy to obtain, and then the mortgage rates, the interest rates are gonna change. And then people won't be able to pay their mortgage. Speculation. So there is a little bit of speculation here, though, right?
I was having that conversation precisely this morning with a big developer here in Medellin.
Yeah.
Like, how do you determine the value of a property? How can you know that the property that you're investing in is not actually inflated in this price? And we came to a conclusion that right now, a lot of the popularity that you see in the city as an investment real estate center that's very popular amongst investors right now is the fact that when people come here, usually they will be looking for properties to be able to rent in short term.
Yeah.
And you will realize that properties are actually providing the value in terms of returns that people claim when they are asking for prices, right?
Okay.
So I feel like this speculation aspect would be in the conversation for sure, due to the fact that the country is popular right now. A lot of people are flowing in, and obviously you're not so used to the increasing prices that has happened here in the few past years, especially as a foreigner who's coming into this real estate market right now. But I feel like prices are certainly justified in the majority of situations.
Right.
In the value that they're given back.
The value that they're given back based on, I guess, basically like cap rates, right?
Yes.
Like how much you're able to get back from the property if you are using it as a commercial space, for Airbnb or renting it even long term to a local or something like that. Obviously, you're going to make more if you put it on Airbnb or just advertising it. So I put all my properties on Airbnb, but I don't get all my clients through Airbnb. I get a lot of the tenants because I have my personal assistant posting in all of the Facebook groups, the travel groups, saying, hey, brand new apartment, and these dates are available. And if you mention this group, you're going to get a discount. So we get a lot like that. And I make them go through Airbnb just to vet them. I'll be like, okay, look, you're gonna come here. I don't know you. So can we do Airbnb first, and then we can talk, once we get to know each other. I want to make sure that you are, I only rent to 5-star guests. Sorry, if you're like a 4.9, can't make you didn't make the
yeah.
cut. But you know, you have to vet people because you never know who's gonna be coming into your apartment.
For sure.
So that's the way I do it. But yeah, in regards to the real estate market here, and how it's changed, you mentioned that there's a lot of tourism right now, and there could be some speculation because there's so much demand right now.
Yeah.
How do you see the real estate market changing going forward, I guess?
So I feel like the biggest change so far in the real estate market
Yeah.
really is the fact that we've gotten this new variable in
Yeah.
terms of the business, which is short-term rentals, cap rates.
Yeah.
Cap rates were out of the equation before
Yeah.
Airbnb, before the tourism. In fact, one of the main differences that you would see, and that would be very funny when you're studying like the U.S. real estate market and the Colombian real estate market, is that in the U.S. you will see golden rules for real estate investors, such as the 1% rule,
Right.
that a property needs to give you back at least 1%
Yeah.
cap rate monthly if it's a good investment. If
yeah.
not, it's not.
It's not. Yeah.
Here, the law actually says that for residential, not commercial rentals, but residential, cannot exceed 1% of the value of the property. So it's
Really?
like is the complete opposite,
Opposite,
when
yeah.
it comes to
Wow.
residential.
Okay.
So that brings the question. So what has been the business of real estate traditionally? The business of real estate in Colombia has not been cap rate. It's been the value that the property gains through time.
Yeah. Appreciation.
So, appreciation of
Yeah.
the property.
Okay.
So taking that into account, that actually like allows you to have a wider perspective about real estate investment here into your mind as a real estate investor, because that brings a couple more items into the equation of your investments that you can use to your advantage. For instance, when our investors come to us and we're looking for property, especially when we're talking about real estate investors, not the the person that's looking for their dream property,
Right.
but rather someone that's looking at numbers, that really is interested in numbers and the risk and everything related to it. We do our best, or we focus mainly on getting properties that will not only provide a good cap rate, but also have a good appreciation potential and have a good potential for rentals in the residential local market as well. Because at the end of the day, those are some of the risks that you could be dealing with in the future. So that's a way to be able not only to take advantage of all the opportunities, but also reduce that risk a little bit.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks for that. Alvaro, what's up, Alvaro? How you doing? Hope you're having a good day. Buddha, you're going to be surrounded by giants in a place where I'm average height. That's funny. Yeah. So, well, we're the anomaly. Most Colombians are under 6 foot.
For sure. No.
Buddha says location, but location. That's true. Why you trippin' says, do digital nomads living in Medellin need to pay income taxes on foreign sourced income? Ooh, good question. We can
Okay.
touch on that.
Yeah, I could give you the answer to that. Nevertheless, that's not my area of specialty. I need to clarify. I'm an attorney by profession. Nevertheless, the experts in all of those areas are my colleagues in the law firm.
Right.
Nevertheless, I do know the answer to that specific question.
Yeah.
So, Colombia has when it comes to taxes, has something that's called, we tax on a worldwide basis. So if you become a tax resident in Colombia, you would certainly have your U.S. income tax. This doesn't necessarily mean that you end up having to pay taxes. This just means that it will definitely be taken into account. You can take the taxes. There are ways to reduce how much you end up needing to pay here.
Yeah.
You can take the taxes that you paid in the U.S. and reduce and deduct that amount from what you need to pay here, and many more strategies that obviously tax and accounting experts can assist you with.
Yeah. So I do recall that if you're in the country for about 186 days or some number like that, it's either 183 or 186 days, if you go over that in a 365 day period, then you are liable to declare taxes. And like you said, it doesn't mean you have to pay taxes while you tripping. It means that you need to declare the taxes if you're here over that certain amount of time. And obviously, if you're paying taxes in, let's say, the United States, you're going to be able to deduct that or use it towards credit for the taxes that you claim here. But again, the best thing to do is check out Nexo Legal. That's the name of the law firm. Nexo, Nexo .legal. That's the website. Check them out. They've got tax accountants there if you are in Colombia and you're worried about that. Just to get a consultation. That's what I would do. At least get to know the actual laws so that you're not get caught with your pants down when you're trying to leave the country.
For sure. At the end of the day, it's ideal just to be prepared.
Yeah, just be prepared. Yeah, guys, so for those of you guys just joining, my name is Andrew. This is Mateo. He is an attorney here in Medellin, and he's helped a few of the people that we have on our masterclass. When we do the masterclass, the Medellin masterclass, we always suggest working with Mateo and his company because they, number one, they're professionals here. They've been around for a lot, and they know all of the laws, and they can help navigate visa law. They can help navigate tax law and real estate law. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop, right? Where you can get a lot of the things that you need done for those that want to live here long term, right? You can get all that done. And on top of that, they speak English, which is a huge advantage because if you, I speak Spanish fluently, and I don't even know half the shit that's on these papers. Like, when I'm like doing the real, I have like my attorney and I have my accountant that help me with that stuff just to make sure I'm not, like they say here, metiendo la pata.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Warren, fella, but doesn't apply to investment income. I don't think. Oh, I don't know if it's investment income. You're gonna have to check that. Foreign earned income exclusion in the U.S. side. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yes, that's true. It does make sense. It's just you just got to know the rules. All right. So yeah, the real estate today. The topic is the real estate market. We're gonna go over what is the process for a foreigner to buy a property here in Medellin. I get these questions all of the time. Wait, why are you tripping? Says one more tax question. Is there capital gains tax on real estate?
Yeah, there is a capital gains tax on real estate. It's after 2 years, I believe, that if you sell the property after that, it becomes capital gains.
Okay, so after 2 years.
Yeah,
I do remember
again,
that law.
But again, I would definitely love if we could review that with the tax experts.
Yeah, I do remember that there's a certain amount of time where if you sell the property after, then capital gains go into effect. But if you sell it before, it could exclude it. Just make sure you know the dates.
If you sell it before, it goes into the income, like the normal income, which ultimately, like depending on each case, one might be more ideal than the other. It will depend on your specific case whether you can, maneuver better in the regular income or in the capital gains.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, guys, we're talking about buying property in Medellin. So, let's say that you're a foreigner here, and maybe let's just keep it at that, and then we'll go down the rabbit hole. You're a foreigner, and you love Medellin, and maybe you want to buy a property because you want to live in it, while you're down here, maybe half the year or maybe a whole year. But then when you leave, you might want to put it up on Airbnb or rent it out to friends, etc. when they come down here. What would be the process for someone from another country to buy a property here?
Okay, so right off the bat, if someone from another country would be to come and invest in Colombia, I would definitely recommend do your research, a throughout research, all the information that you can find about it, recommendations. Maybe you have someone that you know over there that you can ask recommendations about. It's very important that you ask around and that you do your own research before going into talking to anybody. After that, I would recommend that you start looking for the right partners, recommendations for agents, and attorneys. At the end of the day, most importantly, attorneys, because unfortunately, real estate agents and that profession is not regulated in Colombia. So I'm not saying that you cannot run into a bad attorney. That could also happen, but running into a bad real estate agent is it's possible. It's very possible here. It's not a regulated profession. There are definitely good real estate agents that provide value that are definitely worth the money that you're putting in. They can guide you through it. They find good options for you. They negotiate for you. Um, Nevertheless, it's important to have a really good attorney that you understand, that you trust, that actually makes you feel that safety, right? That you can actually trust this person and that the advice that this person is giving you is truthful. So it's super important that you do that for in order to avoid problems and reduce risk. You don't know the amount of times we have had clients come to us with the most like what would seem to us like the most ridiculous situations in which they were clearly gonna be scammed or their money was gonna be taken, and we thankfully were able to avoid that from happening. So I definitely recommend getting a good attorney.
Okay, so that would be step one. Before even looking at properties and
Yeah.
getting your heart all tied up, guys, step number one is get your team together. And your team, the most valuable players will be the real estate attorney and also a real estate agent. One thing to note that Mateo just talked about is that there is no regulation and or certification for someone to become a real estate agent here. Anybody can be a real estate agent. I'm a real estate agent. My microphone's a real estate agent in Medellin. And so you can find some people that are either unscrupulous or maybe just not professional, as well as some people that are very professional that have sold hundreds, if not thousands of properties out here. I know a couple of them that are amazing. In the Medellin Masterclass, we have a complete list of all the people that we recommend that we know that speak English, that can sell property. They make a commission on it. Usually the commissions are paid by the seller, and it's about 3% that you're paying to the real estate agents. And obviously that can be worked out, etc. But just know that that's step number one. Before you even go out looking for properties is assemble your team, getting that real estate attorney that's going to help you go through the process once you do find it. Because I do find a lot of people, and I did this myself with my first property. We went to the property first and we were looking at it and we wanted to buy it, etc. And everything went so slow because I didn't have a real estate attorney ready to do all of the things that need to be done.
Yeah.
So step number one, assemble your team. What would you say step number two would be?
So once you have your team, and as you mentioned, super important. Even some good deals could slip away from you if you don't have your team ready. I would recommend then starting to look for options. It's important to have the good team precisely because they can save you a lot of time as well in recommendations. Someone that doesn't have bad intentions and is trying to do right by you will have no problem in telling you their opinion about
Right.
neighborhoods and stuff like that. So that would allow you to have a little bit of a guide in regards to where to start to look for these properties. Again, their recommendation applies to have a good agent. If you don't, there are search engines in place. Nevertheless, some of the differences that people will find along the way that will present themselves as obstacles will be, for example, the fact that there is no MLS in Colombia. So when you look at search engines and you find properties there, you will see a lot of times properties information is not updated or the property has been sold. So don't don't rush it. Be patient. And if you find a real estate agent along the way that can help you with that, it will definitely save you a lot of headaches. But make sure it's a good one.
Right.
And don't overweight on a bad one. If you're working with a bad one, it will also give you way more headaches. So just get rid of that person. And you can also start looking on your own. If you maybe know the neighborhood that you want to move into, got the time, um, you know, don't mind making the calls, etc. You could also start looking around. A lot of times you could even find properties that are for sale and they have like the information posted on the balcony or the windows, and you could just call and talk directly with the owner. So that's another way to go as well. Um, so yeah, just you can just go ahead and find the property that you're looking for.
Okay, so step number one, start assembling your team. Step number two, start finding the property. And yeah, I've been through this. I've been through the purchase of a property. I'm on my sixth one right now, and you're right. Finding the property, you can go through real estate agents that have listings and or that can find listings out there for you that might not be part of their inventory, but they can find properties for you. You can also do it yourself. If you've got all the time in the world to go maybe driving around or walking around the neighborhoods to look at signs, you can start, making phone calls. What I do is I create a spreadsheet. My spreadsheet has the address of the property, the name of the building, amenities the building may have, and the most important thing for me is the square footage and obviously the price, right? So that way I could divide the price by the square footage and get that price per square footage, right? Per square meter, sorry.
Yeah.
So I know, for example, the latest property that we're going into contract right now with them. It took me, I went to go see at least 20 properties first. And my spreadsheet has over 20 properties on it. But I know now, like in my area, if someone tells me the price of a property, how old it is, because that's also very important, how old the property is and what the square meter is, I know if it's a good deal or not. Like I could see, oh, it's 4 million a square foot. Okay, that sounds like a pretty darn good deal. Oh, it's 6 million per square meter. Sorry, not square foot, per square meter. Then I'll be like, okay, that's way overpriced because this property is 25 years old. It doesn't have a pool. It doesn't have a security guard.
Right.
I'm not paying that for that, right? So that's step number two is starting to look for your property and start comparing them and making your own comps, because there are no websites like an MLS here. There's no Zillow here. There's no centralized information about what was sold last month or last year and how much, etc. So it's really hard to gauge what the property value should be until you start comparing it with everything that's on the market. And that could be kind of frustrating for some people, because a lot of people will come down here for a short period of time and they want to buy a property within like 3 months. And we're like, that might not happen in 3 months, especially in December. Everyone's on vacation right now. Let's see. What do we have?
So at the end of the day, though, it depends a lot on you and your priorities as an investor. There are people who, for example, might be looking for the property of their dreams, the place where they want to retire.
Yeah.
They just are looking for that one place that fits the image that they have on their heads. There are other type of investors like you who are looking more at numbers, who are looking at returns. There are now also investment funds who are coming in and looking like at quantity as well.
Right.
So yeah, at the end of the day, it depends a lot on you and your priorities. And at the same time, a lot of people might be asking themselves, since there is no MLS and Zillow or centralized information here, how do people find out what price is right, how much to pay for a property? Well, one of the recommendations I can make, and that's a very common practice in the market here, would be the comparative method. That will be taking that one property that you're looking into, trying to find more properties that comply with the same criteria, that are basically very similar in similar locations, similar characteristics, and that you can get access to that information to be able to find out. Some of the better real estate agencies have a historical data of all the properties that they've sold, so they're able to tell, and also rentals, so they're able to tell whether these prices seem good or not, or if it's a bad or a good investment.
Right. Okay. Yeah, good information there, guys. Alvaro says, how viable is it to directly with really good and honest property owners? Scoot in a little bit. There you go.
So, unfortunately, it kind of always comes down to your savvy, to how savvy you might be, to how familiar you are with the market and the people here.
Yeah.
That's why, and again, I always say this with the adjective a good real estate agent, because a real estate agent could also be taking advantage of you. But at the end of the day, if it's a good real estate agent, he will be able to actually lower a lot of that liability that you might be exposed to as a foreigner, for language barriers, for cultural barriers. So it's not that, I wouldn't say that it's a problem that you will run into very often, like dealing with a owner that's maybe trying to take advantage of you. Nevertheless, that's partly the reason why you want to deal with someone who's familiar and experienced in this market. I wouldn't say it's very common for that to happen, though.
Yeah, yeah. In my own experience, like I said, I'm on the 6th property. I've never used a real estate agent before to find properties. I've always found them on my own, because the first properties that we bought was a building across the street over there, or down the street, and it was a sign on the window. And then everyone has been like that one, except for the latest one where I used a real estate agent, and he was a great real estate agent, and the owners were completely honest, and all of the dealings that I've ever had directly with the owners have been very honest dealing, and most of them have sold because they were motivated. For example, one was an old lady that her husband had passed away, and she didn't need a 3-bedroom apartment anymore. She wanted to go move in the countryside with her kid, with her son, who's an adult now and has a finca. So she was motivated to sell. She didn't want to be there anymore. And another one was where someone had passed away, and then the kids were they were left with the property, so they had to divide it 3 ways. So they were motivated just to get cash and get out of it, and not have to deal with trying to get someone to rent it, etc. So that's why they were selling. So they were very motivated. So to answer your question, Alvaro, I think it's more common to find people that are honest. In my experience, it has been more common to find people that are honest than dishonest. But it's always, like you said, better to be, I guess, forewarned and prepared, right? Let's say Buddha says, happy to pay for honest and skilled professionals. It's always a worthwhile investment. That's right. Yeah. You get what you pay for a lot of times in life, I guess, right? There's a saying in Colombia, lo barato sale caro. Something that comes cheap always ends up being more expensive. So that's a good saying there. Mr. Eric Macia says, do you guys know the best way to deposit a U.S. check into a U.S. bank account while in Medellin? Can the checks be mailed from the U.S. to Medellin? I don't understand the question. Wait, you want to deposit a U.S. So let's say someone wrote you a check in the United States, and you want to deposit it. Can't you just take a picture of the check nowadays and just deposit it that way? I mean, I know that's... I don't know. You have to check that.
Yeah,
a weird
no,
one.
it would be better to call your bank.
Yeah, call your
directly.
bank.
Yeah.
Buddha says, regarding the age of properties, is that a concern of modern amenities, worried about construction quality and longevity, etc.? I assume cosmetic is a non-factor. Good question. Yeah.
Well, I would say generally you're looking at how old the property is. Like anywhere you're looking at a property that's very old, then you should be expecting some deterioration on the property's like state. You might have to go in and intervene it a little bit more. Nevertheless, that's also a reason behind it having better prices. So you might be finding good opportunities throughout these properties that are a little bit older. So at the end of the day, it's like you wait the pros and cons in those situations. Usually people who are looking into older properties are people who are looking to invest, who are looking into good price per square meter, who are looking to be able to get as much cap rate as possible, a cheap property that they can invest into, just gut it and completely remodel it and get it out there, and even be able to, with this increasing market and even more popular market every day, be able to even sell it eventually, just flip it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good answer there, Abuda, for regarding the age of the property. For I'll give you my examples.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
So this building itself, I think, is about 25 or 30 years old. The property that I'm going through the purchase process right now for is in Patio Bonito. I don't know if you're familiar with the building called El Futuro. It's a 40-year-old building. It's 40-year-old. It's 3 buildings in a closed with security.
So it's not El Futuro.
No, it's not El Futuro. That's El Pasado. That's
it.
true. It's kind of an oxymoron name. But yeah, it's an old-ass building. But the great thing about the older buildings that I really love is that the apartments are huge. Like nowadays, the newer buildings, like you're paying for that square meter a lot. Like especially in El Poblado, you can pay upwards to 7 million to 9 million, sometimes plus 10 million plus per square meter in El Poblado.
Listen, we get access to the real estate company. We started off with the specialty of being able to offer investors access to properties that were like off market, foreclosures, properties that were seized by the government. And so properties that have been seized by the government usually have been seized due to money laundering activities or narco traffic, right?
Okay.
So the properties that you would find in these portfolios are so big and
Really?
so cheap per square meter.
How do you get those?
It's just there's like a public, like a governmental institution. To be honest, if you try to do it as a particular, it will be kind of hard. You will kind of be facing Colombian bureaucracy.
I
You
see.
kind of have to know someone,
I
so
see.
it starts working a little bit. But basically, it's just through this governmental institution.
I see.
At the end of the day, it's just like an auction that goes in there, and you're able to access these properties that don't have like crazy prices, but still taking into consideration the current market and the size of these properties is really good opportunities.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. I'd love to see those. Yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, the age doesn't concern me also because I've been able to see the structures of, they're pretty solid structures, especially these older buildings are very solid. And everything's made on brick here. So, the older buildings are not concrete. They're all brick. So they're not going anywhere. And the great thing about the older buildings as well, the older construction, is that you can knock down pretty much every wall in there. It's a lot easier to do remodels. That's what I found. So yeah. Another question is, Medellin says, shouldn't the estrato matter more than most anything else?
So for those of you who don't know what the strato is, that's basically a classification within the city that tells you what the socioeconomic classification of a certain neighborhood or area is, and based on that, you get the bills for the general services. So it's kind of like it's called a progressive tax. So basically, the people who live in the higher end stratas have to pay more for their public services
Yeah.
than the people who are in the lower stratas. Like basically, the money from here is used to subsidize the cost of these people's basic services. So it does come into consideration when you're precisely thinking about that aspect of cost. It can tell you a little bit about the neighborhood you're in. Nevertheless, a lot of like some people might have the perception that due to the strata, all the value like that dictates all the value of the property. Nevertheless, you can find oftentimes really great properties, and I'm not even talking about properties with good potential. I'm talking about high end finishes properties in stratas that are not even 5 or 6. That might be 4.
Yeah.
So it is an aspect to take into consideration. It will be important when it comes to cost. You want to know like general cost of the
Right.
property. Um, but when it comes to specific investment, like beyond that, I wouldn't say it's that important.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Medellin says, yeah, estrato should be explained for viewers. Yeah, it's a class system basically here. Buddha says, I was mostly wondering because without regulation of real estate agents, I was curious about construction inspections and quality control. Thank you both. Yeah, I do know that there is a lot of bureaucracy here, especially when it comes to buildings and construction. So I'm hoping to this coming year getting into construction myself. Yeah, with one of our Medellin Masterclass students who has built buildings before and bought 5-story buildings, renovated them, etc., and sold them off individually. So that's the plan for next year. So I'll have a lot more insight while doing that. But yeah, that's I do know that there is a lot of rules and regulations to follow, especially when it comes to construction here. Um, Owen Cash says, "What is the average price range?"
Nevertheless, before we pass into the next question, I would like to make a point into that question though. While there is bureaucracy and regulation and requirements for developers, it's still important to take into account that in the past, some problems have happened here due to some developers who are very well identified now in the market having uh, done projects with poor quality materials, which ended up having to be turned down, and the investors had to enter a judicial nightmare that they're dealing with in order to be able to recover their investment. So it's good to work with someone who's also familiar with the real estate market in Medellin, so you can ask about these aspects as well. Because as you mentioned, real estate agents are not regulated, so the responsibility that you could link to a real estate agent is very blurry. It's like it would be really hard, and you will also need to face a long legal process. So yeah, it's important to work with recommended, reputable agents that also know about the market. Very important. Like a good agent is not just someone that wants to do right by you. Like you can have the best intentions, but if you have no knowledge, if you have no experience in the market, you will not be able to help your clients avoid taking this risk and exposing themselves like that.
Great point. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I think anywhere, right? Anywhere you go, anywhere in the world is finding your team. So, yeah, step number 1, assemble your team. Step number 2, go find your property. Do your own comps. Maybe have an assistant help you do your comps. Have a real estate agent help you with the comps. Things are not going to be as organized when it comes to comps here. So you have to lead that. You have to lead it yourself. That's what I've done. I have spreadsheets. For example, I'll give you what we're doing right now with the Medellin Masterclass. We have a few students that come in. They want to buy property, so we help them through our elite program. We help them find the property, working with a real estate agent. But the real estate agent will literally just send you links via WhatsApp. And it's just a whole mess with pictures, and it's so disorganized. So literally what we do is we say, I have a spreadsheet for each real estate agent. I say, okay, Camilo, this is your spreadsheet. Please fill it out. Property number 1, square footage, price, name of the property, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How many bathrooms, gyms, pool, et cetera. Property 2, property 3, property 4. And then we go, okay, we want to go see property 4. So now we've got it organized. So you have to do that here. So that's step 2 is finding the property. Let's answer another question here. I know that Owen wanted to ask, what is the average price range for single-story homes, not apartments, in Laureles area, Envigado? That's tough.
Like a lot of aspects go into play there. How old the property that we're talking about is, the area. So the average price for and also a very important aspect is whether you can build on top of this property or not. Like, what are the building regulations? So I would like taking into account that all of those aspects go into play. I cannot be very precise about the range, so sorry about that. I would say you'll be able to find properties that will be between 4 to 7.5, 8 million per square meter. Mostly, like the aspect that increases the value of these properties a lot is whether, like, the construction regulations, if you can build a building there or not.
Oh,
So
that's interesting. Yeah.
so yeah, it's difficult. It's a little bit too
Yeah. So if
too
you got
broad,
one of those
yeah.
old houses, but the zoning allows for you to build, knock it down and build a 5-story building and put in 8, apartments in there, that property value is going to be a lot higher than the next door neighbor's house that doesn't have that zoning
Yeah,
for
that only allows 2 levels.
2 levels.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's very good information. I didn't even think about that.
And the thing is that sometimes you can even find a property that only allows to build 3 levels next to one that has 12 levels. So that aspect, it's really important. It could really change the price of a property.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. That gave me chills because I'm literally going to go through that next year with a couple of my business partners to buy an apartment building, and I'm like, I need to buy a house that allows for freaking 5 stories, and you see that happening. That's advanced. My point of that's more advanced than what I am as an investor right now. Right now, I just own apartments, but hopefully next year I will have a building, guys.
You just talk to loyalty property advisors, man.
I got a loyalty property advisors.
We
That's
can
your
help you
company.
out with that. Yeah,
I heard that.
I think you already got the chance to speak to Brian.
Yeah, I know Brian. I've known Brian for years.
Super savvy real
Yeah.
estate investor. He's currently the commercial manager of that company, so he's the person that helps out and brings people by
Yeah.
the hand. And I'm also a real estate investor myself, so I got
you?
a little bit
Nice.
of experience investing here in Colombia initially, and into the U.S. in just these past 2 years.
Oh, congrats. That's awesome.
Yeah, so always happy to help with that, and with buildings and stuff. That's our passion for
Yeah.
sure.
I'm
Brian and I.
gonna have Brian on the podcast here, or on the show in a couple of weeks. I already talked to him about that.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Should be awesome one as well. Let's see what else. Buddha says corruption's always a concern. Yeah, I mean it is Colombia. It is Colombia.
Yeah. Unfortunately, corruption is a concern. I would say it's a concern everywhere. It's just that here you find it in levels that you would not usually expect it. You find it just spread out through everywhere, and it's at the end of the day, as I mentioned, I think corruption is not a problem that's only limited to Colombia or only limited to third world countries. What's most important is that you know how to navigate it, that you're familiar with how business work. We're creating this business environment along all of these companies, and one of the projects that we have is precisely an advisory company that just helps people who are coming here with not only real estate investments, but their companies and stuff from the economical, financial, cultural side. And one of the biggest obstacles that we identified while developing that project is the cultural gap.
Okay.
The cultural gap is a very big problem for people who are entering this market, excuse me, and trying to invest. So definitely corruption is something to be worried about. Is a concern. Nevertheless, at the same time, it's a matter of finding the right allies along the way, so you can make things happen and just reduce risk and liability.
Yeah. Sam has a pretty good question. Sam asks, can I buy 2 properties or more that are less expensive properties that combined qualify for the investment visa, or does it have to be one property?
So again, I'm an attorney, but the experts on all of these aspects are my colleagues. So if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, you can do that with two properties, no problem. The one thing that I would definitely point out and recommend is that if you're planning to get this real estate investor visa to gain time and add up time to eventually be able to apply for a residency, it's very important that you keep into account that when you reapply for your real estate investor visa in a year, 2 or 3 years, uh, the requirements must still be met by the time you reapply. Let me explain. One of the requirements, for example, and this is the one that I want to focus the most in, is the amount of property, of money that the property ends up costing you. So the requirement is that it costs 350 times the minimum wage salary. It's important to remember that the minimum wage salary increases every year. So when you're to reapply for your real estate investor visa, your property, your initial investment should still meet the requirement by the time you reapply. So it should still be above or at least 350 times the minimum wage salary by that time that you reapply. So we recommend that if you're planning to get that visa for the long run and be able to acquire a residency in the long term, that you invest in a property that's at least twice that amount. So you don't risk the the possibility of not being able to renew your
Yeah.
visa and losing all the
Yeah,
time.
because your property value is less than what the minimum is required. So I know because we're going through this with one of our Medellin masterclass students. He's buying a property right now, and he wanted to know what was the lowest amount that he could buy a property for, based on what the minimum wage is right now. And I think it came out to be like $120,000 right now. But his attorney told him, if you buy it for that right now, in 4 years, when you go reapply, that minimum wage or that minimum investment's not going to be 120,000. It's probably going to be higher. So he recommended him buying a property that's between like 140 or $150,000 just to meet that criteria in 4 years. So that's a very, very important step when applying for the real estate property owner visa here, is to make sure that the property value will exceed the amount required in the future.
Yeah, and it's important to point out that while we're giving general advice on all of these topics, each case is particular and unique. So that's why it's important to consult the experts that are familiar and experienced with these situations and will be able to provide you with a feasible solution and a solution that you can actually trust.
Yeah. Okay. I wonder why this is. There we go. Oh, it's just lower quality. Okay, there we go. All right, so guys, for those of you just joining, welcome. This is the Medellin Buzz. We have Mateo on today. We're talking about real estate. He's an attorney here in Medellin, and we're going over what is the process to buy a property if you're a foreigner. Number one, you got to find your team, a good real estate attorney, and maybe a good real estate agent. Number two is to find the property and start doing your own comps, organizing things with your team. And number three, what would you say would be the third step?
Third step would be, once you got the property that you're interested in, and since you have your team already set up, you can start performing your due diligence. That basically comprehends the legal due diligence around the property that you're purchasing. It's very important that you contact someone that's specialized in real estate, a real estate attorney, not just the first person that crosses by, because a lot of aspects could also change depending on the type of property that you're investing in. For example, there is an item that not a lot of attorneys know about when you're investing in real estate in the countryside. And I'm sure that, and I'll be more than happy to actually invite any of you who have a real estate attorney already to ask them if they know about this. This will be a good test to figure out if they actually have a good level of knowledge in real estate law in Colombia. So when there is an investor is going to invest in a property that's in the countryside, especially in the countryside and especially in certain specific areas. We've had this situation because we've helped investors who've come here to develop agro-industrial projects. So we got to these areas. Beyond the usual title search, it's also important to verify whether the property is involved in the process of restitution that's linked to the peace treaty that was signed here in Colombia. Because if the property is linked to that restitution project, that restitution process could be taken away from you without a warning. That's a huge risk. And,
That's a big risk.
believe me, like, and I know this will be, if you got attorneys or people from other law firms watching, this will be a great eye opener for them. A lot of people don't know this and don't keep this into account. Nevertheless, that's why I insist it's important that you find people who are reputable, that you can trust, so you don't risk your assets when you're coming here into Colombia and making investments. So I would definitely say that would be the next step, doing your due diligence on the legal side. From there on, it would basically be a matter of like the closing details, signing contracts, transferring the domain of the property. But those three, I would say, would be the most critical aspects when it comes to investing in real estate in Colombia.
Okay. So yeah, step number 3 is once you find your property to start doing the due diligence on it, and obviously your real estate attorney is going to be helping you doing that by doing the title analysis, right? And usually the title analysis is done in conjunction or with the help of either the property owner or the property owner's real estate attorney to get as much information from them so that they can do a comprehensive analysis, so that your attorney can do that comprehensive analysis. The title analysis will discover a few things, right? Like if there's taxes owed on the property, if there's any liens on the property, anything else that the title analysis
It would
shows?
show you liens, if it has debts, if maybe it has been owned. Like if it's a very deep and a good title search analysis, it would also tell you who has owned the property, not only their name, but also analyzing who these people were or who these people are, that they were not involved in any judicial or criminal case that might put your ownership in jeopardy. Because now that we were talking about the properties that are seized by the government earlier,
Yeah.
these like the regulations around money laundering and narco traffic are very strict in Colombia. That's a huge risk. Even one of the arguments that we would sometimes put to investors at the beginning of the real estate company was that the safest way to be able to be sure to ensure that you're not running into a property that has been previously owned by a narco, or that you will not be running into a property that will have a problem by being seized by the government, is precisely purchasing the properties that have already been seized by the government, because they've already been, as we say, sanitized. Like they give it back to you completely clean. Like, oh, we know it was like, we obviously seized it for a reason, but we give it back to you clean. Other than that, it's always a risk, and it's very important to have someone that could look deeply into that, because the risk is big and people have already had their money gone due to that reason, and now are facing a long judicial process.
Okay. Good insight there. Yeah, you don't want your shit taken away from you because you didn't do the due diligence. Medellin says, I have a question. If I am an American and I inherited a property in Colombia, am I able to apply for an investment visa? That's really particular there.
If I inherited a property in Colombia, no, unfortunately not, because the property needs to be purchased through via a foreign direct investment, which actually brings me these two notes that I want to point out here. One of them would be, it's very important for you to know that you want to get your visa through this investment before you make the investment.
I see.
We've got people that have come to us after they already got the property, and it's already too late. You need to know this beforehand. You need to bring the money the right way. You need to register the funds the right way to be able to obtain the visa that you're looking for.
I see.
And another aspect that I was going to mention was that since this needs to be a foreign direct investment, a tax resident cannot perform this type of investment. So it's important that you talk to experts beforehand so you can plan things beforehand as well.
Right.
A lot of times we have people who have come to us who have the funds to invest in real estate, but unfortunately cannot obtain a visa because they already spent enough time here to be tax residents. So they cannot do foreign direct investment.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very important there. Um, is there a foreign buyer tax? Robert asks. They have it in Canada.
Like if you get taxed for buying property as a foreigner, no, there is no tax, and there is no requirements either. You can obtain a property just with your passport.
Oh wow. Okay. So you don't even have to have a local ID. You can just buy a property with a passport. There's no foreigner tax.
In fact, buying property is one of the ways to be able to obtain a Colombian ID.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. I hope that answers your question there, Robert. Alvaro says, yeah, to chime in on Medellin's inherited properties. What is the process to follow when you have inherited a very large Medellin property and you don't live in Colombia? Ooh, that's a good question.
So that that question could be taken from different perspectives. If you're asking about like what to do when you're getting an inheritance in Colombia and you're not in Colombia, well, you can obtain this inheritance and do the whole process without stepping into the country. You can get an attorney. You can provide this attorney with a power of attorney to basically take care of the situation. Um, but yeah, I don't know if maybe you're asking tax wise or what specifically would be the line of the question, Alvaro. If maybe you could expand a little bit on that, and I'll be more than happy to provide the answer if I have it.
Yeah. Vanessa, how's it going? Vanessa Ocampo. She says, sounds like the right of redemption in Alabama. They can tax home back within 12 months if they catch up back taxes within same time period. Does it matter if property will be owned or tenant occupied? Like what you're going to be using it for? I don't quite understand the question.
Okay, so I get that she might be comparing like the seized property that we were talking about with the right of
I see.
redemption
Yeah.
in Alabama.
Okay.
And I believe you're asking what will be the difference if the property is owner or tenant occupied. Like if someone is living there by the time you're acquiring this property. So if that's the case, basically you have to go through a launching process. That's what it's called, the process of kicking people out from the property. I know in the U.S., depending on the state you're looking at, some of the laws regarding the protection of tenants are very, very tight and protect tenants a lot, and you can run into big problems due to that. Here, I would say it's kind of like in the middle. The processes of launching take around 6 months. We have had to deal with this process, especially with properties that have been seized by the government. A lot of times, since the governmental institutions are not doing that much of a good job managing these properties, sometimes people would break in. They would have some sort of protection. Nevertheless, you kind of get the legal process going and get these people out, and you're able to access the property.
Okay. Buddha says that the tax resident piece is huge. Can you please clarify those details? Meaning that when you were saying that someone messed up their opportunity to do the property owner visa because they superseded the amount of days and became a tax resident?
So, one of the requirements to be able to acquire a real estate investor visa is that the investment that you're making in this property is classified as a foreign direct investment, as an FDI. So, in order for the investment that you're making, the money that you're bringing from outside into Colombia to invest, to put into this property, to actually work for that end, it needs to be a foreign direct investment. Therefore, you cannot be a tax resident in Colombia by the time you do that.
That makes sense.
Because if you are a tax
Okay.
resident, you can like the classification of this investment will not be foreign direct investment
I
anymore,
see.
right?
I see.
So you need to keep that in mind if you want to get a real estate investor visa through this method. It's not like this means that you cannot ever get the real estate investment visa. That's not true. You can eventually leave the country for enough time to just ask for this classification of tax resident to be removed, and then you will be able to perform a foreign direct investment again.
That is interesting. So now I understand, because my friend, who is a foreigner, he's been living in and out of Medellin for the past, I don't know what, like 6 or 7 years, right? So he had run out of his options for visa. So he had a student visa. Then he did the digital nomad visa, and then blah blah blah. So he had enough money to buy a property. He bought the property and then consulted with a real estate attorney. The real estate attorney says this can't be a real estate investment by a foreigner, a foreign investment, because you're a tax resident. So he's like, holy shit, I just spent $130,000 or $140,000 on this property, which will not help me get that visa.
That sucks. Yeah.
That's
you,
your answer.
You don't want people to be running into that. Yeah, I mean, like
what can you do?
There is nothing specifically about that situation. As I mentioned, if you want that specific type of visa, the only thing you could do is try to give up your tax residency, which would only be possible once you've spent, I think it's 6 months outside of the country. I will need to verify that with the tax and accounting experts. But yeah, that sucks. Too bad.
That sucks. Well, at least you got a nice property though. But
I mean, if you don't want that to happen, then you're watching Andrew's podcast all the time. Precisely, you're getting all this valuable information.
That's super important. Now I understand why he's not in the country right now. So he's going through the process of removing that tax status that resident. The tax status, so that he can actually go through the process of getting the visa.
Yeah. Nevertheless, there are like 20 plus, I think 30 visa types. So, if he wants to look into the options, there are always options.
Yeah.
But if he's planning to do like that's why I mentioned the whole, what's your plan? What's your plan at the end of the day? If he's planning to actually use this investment to add up to his time to eventually acquire the residency, then it makes sense that he's trying to do that.
Okay. All right, guys, for those of you just joining, this is Andrew and Mateo. Mateo is an attorney here in Medellin. He is a Medellin local. He helps people and his firm buy property out here, get visas, and make sure that they're doing it the right way. And yeah, so we're having a discussion on what are the important steps to buying a property as a foreigner. Number one is to assemble your team, find a reputable real estate lawyer, finding a reputable and honest real estate. They call them comisionistas. So they're not real estate agents. They're called commission earners. And anybody can become a commission earner by selling a property. So that's why you've got to be very careful with who you choose to do business with, as far as them helping you with finding properties out here. Step number three is to look for your property and start doing your own comps, getting organized. Step number four is, once you find your property, is to start doing the due diligence on the property, and this is where the real estate attorney is going to come in to help you do that title analysis to make sure that it's clean and that you're not going to get it seized in the future, or that you owe anything on it before you do the deal. After that, once you've done the title analysis and you have a clean title, what would you say would be the next step after that?
Oh, after you're good to go. You're
good to go?
basically on the closing steps. That will be, you coming to an agreement about the last details, about how these payments are going to be made. You can either go directly into the purchase, or you can have like a preparing state with a previous contract that allows you to have a little bit of time precisely to run this due diligence. But yeah, once you're done with that, you're good to go. You finish the contract, you sign the contract, you pay the taxes and the fees that you need to pay at the notary, and you get the property title transfer. That's
Okay.
basically the ending step.
Yeah. So, in regards to a contract, for example, let's say you've got the clean title, you love this property, you're ready to go, you've reached the verbal agreement, but now you need something in writing, like what do you call it? A purchase agreement,
A purchase agreement.
and that purchase agreement is signed by both parties.
Yeah, that one is signed by both parties. It's important to also work with someone that's familiar with you as a client and your like your specific requirements due to you maybe coming from outside to invest here, because you don't want to maybe commit to obligations that you can't comply or actually meet,
Yeah.
and have an attorney that's not familiar with the way things usually work in your specific case, that doesn't know that it might take a little longer for you to be able to set up your trust account or your bank account here to be able to bring the money. And you don't want to be running into a situation of non-compliance in a contract. So that's definitely not the first thing that you want to run into when you're trying to do real estate investments in a foreign country.
Right.
So it's important to keep that in mind, that you might be very excited about closing a deal. You might be wanting to close it right away and just get it done with and move into your new home in Medellin. Nevertheless, it's important to be very patient in all of the steps of the way, so you can avoid running into problems such as that one, which at the end of the day will be a very, very like a very stupid problem. Kind of like you would be pissed off at yourself for running into a problem like that you could have avoided easily just by not rushing and not committing into things that you might not be able to comply with.
Okay. All right. That's good. I'm going to get to some of these questions here in a second, but Rick asked a very important question. How long is escrow? There is no escrow in Colombia, number one. So there is no escrow in Colombia. So before we get to that, we're going to get to bringing the money over from the United States to Colombia, because that's a very important step. So to recap what we've gone over so far, step number one, assemble your team. Get your real estate attorney, real estate agent on your side working with you. Number two is to start looking for the property, doing comps on your own, organizing that with your team. Number three is to actually do a title analysis once you found the property, and your real estate attorney helps you with that. Number four is to actually sign a purchase agreement, and that purchase agreement will lay out everything that needs to be paid and how it's going to be paid, right? To the seller. And also the purchase agreement ensures that that seller is not going to turn around and sell it to somebody else because they got a better offer. So once that's signed, it's pretty much set in stone that the deal is going to happen, and there will be dates and ways as to how that money is going to be transferred, whether it's all going to be one lump sum or if it's going to be staggered in payments, right?
Yeah, I just regarding there's a document, as you mentioned, the promise of purchase, which is like that previous state that allows you, and it's kind of like you come to an agreement, and it would be safe to say that the opportunity is pretty safe on you, like you still will get that chance to get the property first. Nevertheless, we've already run into two cases of people who signed purchase agreements and got another buyer.
Oh.
And they were willing, like the offer that they were getting from the second buyer was so much greater than the first offer that it would even be more than the penalty clause.
Oh, so they were willing to pay the penalty?
Just pay the
like
penalty
whatever,
clause.
we'd rather sell it for more. Oh, so there is a penalty for breaking that purchase or that promise to sell.
You could set it up with no penalty, but at the end of the day, what would be like?
Yeah, what's the?
That would be just a blank paper.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Let's see. Mr. Henry says, once I purchase a property, do I need to pull any permits to remodel a home, apartment, or add square footage?
Yeah, like the right way to go would certainly be getting the permits. You don't want to have the authorities maybe coming to your place because your neighbors are tired of the noise and then getting penalties. For that, some of the penalties or some of the consequences could even come up to you having to tear down the remodelation or the construction. So you definitely want to be able to have all the permits to to get everything ready and comply with everything before you get into the remodelation or the construction for sure.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. In all of my remodels that I've done, we've had to pull permits and make sure that you're doing it right because we did come on our like second construction we fucked up and and one of the neighbors told on us and we had to pay a penalty and it's a hefty penalty. You're talking about like millions per square footage or square meter for the mistake that you made, and
Yeah.
and it keeps increasing like as the days go by. So you have to like fix it quickly.
And you got off cheap, to be honest with you, because they could have forced you to take it down. We even in a case not long ago, and well, not ashamed to say this, but a really bad neighbor that I had in the property that I have in the countryside outside of the city in Barbosa. That's about like an hour away from here.
Yeah.
Really bad neighbor, and very noisy, and ended up, at first we were like in good terms. Eventually, it turned really into like dark really quickly, and so we got into reviewing a little bit about some constructions that he had done in previous years, like in very recent years, and we digged a little bit and found out that he didn't have permits. He did not comply with a lot of things. So we just finished like it was like a 2 year long process, and in the second stage we lost in the first stage. Now in the second stage, the judge favored us, so now he has to tear down the
Wow.
constructions that he made.
Okay. You
So you
got him.
definitely you don't want to have blind spots in your businesses or your investments in Colombia, for sure.
Okay, Mr. Rick Wilmore says, did you guys discuss how the peso is getting stronger compared to the U.S. dollar? This is one of the reasons I'm exploring a purchase in Medellin. The USD appears to continue to lower in value in the future.
So I personally am very interested in economy and currencies. Nevertheless, precisely because of that, I cannot be responsible and tell you I know the future and know what the behavior of both the USD and the COP will be from here on out. I know this year definitely the COP has been one of the strongest currencies in the world. Uh, Nevertheless, we also ended up last year in a bad note. So far, like my best recommendation would be there's this guy that I follow that we follow a lot in the real estate law in the real estate company especially, that is a Colombian economist. He's the head economist of a company that's called Alianza Valores.
Yeah, that's the brokerage firm, right?
He is the brokerage firm. His name is Felipe Campos. Felipe Campos, on you can find him on X. He posts very frequently, and to be honest with you, so far I have not found someone who's as accurate as him in terms of what the behavior of USD COP is. He was even like last year, during the elections, we were able to advise a lot of our clients in holding on onto their investments when the whole elections were going on and stuff, because one of the biggest things that he would insist on was the fact that the peso would lose a lot of ground against the dollar. So at the end of last year, that was certainly the case, and the investors that we got and that fortunately followed that advice, well, made a definitely a great decision, especially with what has happened this year. I personally, as I say, you cannot tell the future. My recommendation is that when you look into investing into Colombia, the whole currency aspect is definitely a very important one. And if you look historically, the dollar has always gained margin over the peso. Like historically, the dollar always goes up, and the peso loses like ground in that dynamic. So, for instance, I would not recommend to look at investing in the country such as Colombia, especially if your home country is the U.S., if you got most of your things there. I wouldn't say like, hey, get all of your assets, get all of your capital, and just pour it into Colombia. I wouldn't say that would be responsible. I would say if you see the potential in this country, if you are able to manage your finances in such a way that you can have part of your finances into risk investments, into riskier investments,
Yeah.
and also that with doing your due diligence and research, with having good context, etc., then it's a good option. Because at the end of the day, what you do with all of this is that you're trying to diversify your investments to reduce risk. We cannot tell the future, but anything can happen tomorrow. So maybe the peso keeps going up and the dollar keeps going down. So it will be a great decision to have things invested in Colombia at that moment. Maybe it's the opposite, you know. So that's why it's good to have like things diversified so you lower your risk. So I wouldn't recommend for someone to just bring everything here.
Everything into
I
Colombia.
wouldn't. I wouldn't. That would not be responsible. I don't do that.
Yeah, I don't
personally.
do that either.
For
Yeah.
instance, most of my of the income I'm getting, and it's in the USD at the moment, and I would say I have like 50-50 in terms of my real estate investments. A lot of it has gone into the US because that was like a market that I hadn't invested in previously, and I wanted to diversify my portfolio precisely. I am a firm believer of the future that Colombia has and the potential that Colombia has. I believe people will be coming into this country as they have due to not only its popularity, but also to climate reasons, to geopolitical reasons. We were looking at some areas. We're getting a lot of clients or investors who are coming from the Eurasia
Eurasia, yeah.
zone. A lot of people from Russia, people from Ukraine, people from Eastern Europe. Now with the conflict in between Palestine and Israel, we're getting people who are coming from Israel to invest here. So I feel like Colombia just will keep on bringing people, especially if we're able to provide that stability that the country has had in the past years.
Very and crazy insight right there. Very good. Thank you. Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, so in regards to bringing money into Colombia, if you have dollars or let's say euros or pounds, and banking on that to make you more euros, dollars, or pounds, the possibility is very low. That's not, you might be getting cash flow. So I bank on cash flow based on Airbnb, and I bank on the cap rate that I'm able to take advantage of because I have nice Airbnbs and I manage them really well, and I have high quality clients, and I make cash flow every month. I have US dollars coming in. But remember, I get US dollars for those. I don't bank on appreciation over 10 years and to roll it back over into dollars, because that's not my game plan with these assets here. My game plan is to keep rolling that over into Colombian assets, right? For example, if I were to retire in the future, I'd maybe sell a couple properties, roll them into a Colombian CD or an EFT or whatever, or roll it into the stock market here or whatever and live on interest. But I'm not going to be rolling it back over to the US because that's what my US assets are for. So that's what I got from you. And so I'm proud of myself because I think I'm doing it right.
Yeah. That's a very that's precisely what you want to do. And this is like one of the first advices that I got when it came to finances and at a very young age, and that is diversify so you can lower risk and liability. Then the way I look at it is not like I'm trying to like move money around all the time. The way I see it is now I have my household, or so to say, in the U.S. I have my household in Colombia, and they're both businesses that are profitable, making money, and now they can each grow separately, not
Right.
necessarily depending from one and the other, but providing me that flexibility if, as people say, if shit hits the fan.
Yeah. Mateo needs to get closer to the mic. All right. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
He has a very deep voice. What's up, AK? Let's see. Let's see. Did we have any other questions that we missed here? By the way, guys, we've gone through the process of buying a property as a foreigner. Step number one is to assemble your team, find your real estate agent, your real estate attorney. Step number two is to actually find the property, to go out and looking for it, either doing it yourself or working with your team, i.e. a real estate attorney or real estate agent and or your personal assistant, doing your own comps. The next step is to actually have the property that you're interested in, doing the due diligence on that property, the title analysis. And then once you're set on the property that you want to buy, having your real estate attorney help you with that purchase agreement, which is called la promesa de compraventa here.
No, so that's a misunderstanding that a lot of people has. Like the differentiation between the promise of purchase and the actual purchase agreement.
So there's two.
It's two different contracts. Like a lot of people use the promise of purchase as a purchase agreement. Nevertheless, the whole idea behind these two contracts is precisely being able to provide the buyer enough time to perform their due diligence before actually being compromised on having to meet with a series of requirements or comply with an obligation. So the promise of purchase should serve as that contract that kind of says, hey, I'm serious about this. I'm gonna be running my due diligence on the property. Just give me a little bit of time. You set a deadline for that, and then you actually get an actual purchase agreement.
Okay.
That would be the technical right way to do it. Nevertheless, if you just go get the promise of purchase, I mean, it definitely will have its perks to have the two contracts, but you can do it either way.
Yeah, I think I've always only had the promesa, which served as the purchase agreement as well. Okay, that's interesting to know. I didn't know that you could have two or that there are two. Okay, very good. Yeah, so... Yeah, go ahead.
Because when you're running your due diligence, is not only legal due diligence, right? At the same time, you could be running numbers, right? So if you sign a promise of purchase that contains all the items that a purchase agreement has,
right,
and that is actually a purchase agreement, not a promise of purchase, by that,
yeah,
like factually it would be a purchase agreement,
yeah,
then you will be, if you don't find a legal reason why you don't want to invest in the property and only found out that the numbers don't make sense for you, you would have the obligation to comply with the compromises that you signed on. That is, hey, if I don't find any legal liens, then I will be buying the property and paying the price these and these dates.
I see.
So those are the things you may be wanting to actually have that possibility of jumping away from the deal if you don't find it appropriate for you.
Okay, very good. And now I understand. Okay, so now let's say that you have the agreement and that you're ready to buy. How do you bring money? Since there is no escrow companies in Colombia, there is no escrow when you buy property here. What is the process of paying for the property if your money is in, let's say, the United States?
So that's one of those aspects that I mentioned to you about that's very important to actually be dealing with people who are familiar with you and your specificities as a client. That would be someone that knows that maybe in your case you need to open a bank account here, you need to open a trust account here. So the answer to that question will be related to what's the end goal with this moving the funds, if you want to obtain a visa through this, or if you're just looking at the most cost effective method to bring the funds into the country and you're not in the rush. So you can use various methods. You can use intermediaries in the market, you could use banks, but yeah, at the end of the day, the accurate answer will be dependent on what your goal is throughout this investment.
I see. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's the next step, is to bring the money over. And for our clients, we make sure that our clients, our students at the Medellin Masterclass that want to buy property, we make sure that that's actually one of the first steps that they take, is that if they don't have a local ID and they can't open up a bank account so that they can set up a transfer from their bank in the United States to their own bank account here, then to have them start setting up a brokerage account with Alianza or Acciones y Valores.
Although you don't need, that's another misconception. You don't necessarily need a visa or a Colombian ID to open a bank account. What you require is a tax ID. That's called RUT. So you could open a bank account in Colombia as a foreigner without a visa. You need an RUT. Maybe in a lot of cases, you would find that some banks, especially like some banks that are not familiar with foreigners, might just say no to you right off the bat.
Yeah.
That's just because they don't know. But you certainly can open a bank account without a visa.
Yeah, that's true, actually, because AK was trying to open up a bank account. He got rejected by a few banks. And literally, I went to BBVA because I have an account there too. And I asked the lady that was helping me, hey, can foreigners open an account here? And she knew. She, right away, she's like, yeah, they can. They just need the root, and they need the RUT number, and they also need their passport, whatever, other information. And he went and opened up an account there. But it did take some time. But yeah, you're right. Four no's don't mean no, definitely.
For sure.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so bringing the money over. Okay, so now let's say that you have the property that you want to buy. What is the best route to pay for the property? Maybe like sending the money to the seller so that you're registering the investment. What does that process look like so that people don't make mistakes?
So, as I mentioned, it would depend on whether you want to obtain a visa through this investment or not. But it's basically a matter of opening up either your bank account or your trust account, registering the investment throughout the correct form. That is very important and very delicate step, because the penalties for this could be up to the amount that you're trying to bring. So basically, if mistakes happen in this step, there is risk that you could be losing all the money that you brought into the country throughout that process. So it's very important that someone that's familiar with this process of registering the funds and that knows how to do it properly is helping you out with that process. After that, it's really like throughout the closing stage that we were talking about, the contract, etc., you basically detail how that's going to happen. So that's where you talk about details of bank account numbers, when to wire the money, etc., or if it will be by check. But basically, all is agreed in that closing stage.
Okay. And when you say registering the investment, just to be clear, that's registering with the national bank here.
Correct.
And there's a special form in order to do that, to register it correctly. Mm-hmm. And if you don't register it correctly, you can be penalized.
You could be penalized.
And the penalty can be up to the amount that the investment costs, or what the investment is?
Up to the amount that you're bringing into the
So if you're bringing $150,000 and you don't do it right, you might have to pay another $150,000 as a penalty.
We're yet to run into that situation in all honesty. Nevertheless, it's a risk that's there. It's definitely in the law, so it could be possible that you're just run into a government official who's having a bad day
Yeah.
and just decides to do wrong by you.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, that's great. So that's probably the most, if not one of the most important steps in the purchasing. The two main steps are, number one is the title analysis, right? Making sure that you've got a clean title. And then the next very important step is to make sure that you're registering your investment correctly with the national bank so that you don't have to pay penalties and mess up everything in the process.
Yeah, to the title verification to make sure that title is clean and that you're actually buying from the actual owner.
Yeah.
You don't want to you don't want to actually be buying the property from the person who's not the owner, and that could happen.
That could, yeah, that definitely can happen. Rick says, guys, do you know the new dollar amount that is required as of 2024 for a visa related to a home purchase?
So, as I mentioned, the requirement is based upon minimum wage salary in Colombia. So the requirement will remain being 350 times the minimum wage salary, and how much that is in pesos will depend on how much the minimum wage is increased. They're currently negotiating that, in fact, and and based on that, we'll be able to tell how much that will be in dollars. But basically, it's based on the minimum wage salary. We'll know by January.
Yeah. So, yeah, to answer your question, Rick, we don't know. We don't know exactly because we don't know what the new minimum wage is going to be next year. For this year, for the clients that were the students from the masterclass that we were helping buy property, it came up to be about $120, 120,000 US dollars. But like we said before, you want to give yourself a buffer because that minimum wage will increase in the future. And when you need to reapply, that investment should still comply with the increased amount. So if you're talking about $120,000, then it's you're safer investing $140 or maybe $150,000 to answer your question. But yeah, again, you want to consult with professionals. So those are the steps, guys, to buying a property out here. It's pretty straightforward, but depending on the situation, everybody's situation is very different. And every property is different as well. So you need to make sure you're following the rules. I want to thank you, Mateo, for coming on. This was awesome, very informative. A lot of things that I didn't know, even though I've gone through the process now a sixth time. I didn't even know that you could have the promesa and the purchase agreement, which I thought the promesa was the purchase agreement. But no, there could be two. Okay.
Unfortunately, the Colombian real estate market, and this, to close this right here because I know the time's up. But the Colombian real estate market, especially agencies, don't have that differentiation between buyers agents and sellers agents. And you will realize most of the times you're talking to sellers agents who have a limited portfolio that they want to sell you no matter what. So they're in their best interest is that they skip as many steps as possible and are able to get to the closing as fast as they can.
Right.
Since we usually work with buyers, not only from the real estate company advisory side, but also from the legal side. Yeah. Then it's in our client's best interest for them to have a little bit more time to verify things are looking the way they want to, yeah, before they make the next step, which is moving the money. There's no way to go back from there.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So a lot of great information, guys. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for all the questions. Make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button if you're not subscribed. I do go live frequently now. I was going live every Saturday, but now I'm adding live streams during the week as well because I have so many people to interview, so many great friends, and so many people that know so much more about certain topics than I do, i.e. Mateo here. So thanks again, Mateo. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We'll have to do it again. Maybe do a catch-up one in a few months. Once the new minimum wage is done and we know what those numbers are.
Yes, for sure. I'll be more than happy to do, and make sure to also look for us on social media and to follow us.
How do you find you?
You can find our companies as Nexo Legal for the law firm. You can find Loyalty Property Advisors for the real estate investment company, and you can find us as Recruitment for the recruiting company that specializes in recruiting IT talent in Latin America. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. I'll see you guys on Saturday. I have another guest on Saturday. Going to be a great one, an expat living here for almost as long as me. He's from Florida, and that's going to be an interesting one. I'll catch you guys on Saturday. Have a great one. All right. That was awesome, man. That was